What if Naruto was Mega Prodigy Part 6? Let's go. So Shisui just got the offer to join Zetsu in his mission to fulfill the ultimate genjutsu on the world, the infinite Tsukuyomi, to achieve all his dreams, though Shisui didn't really have any problems with the world as it currently is, except for the war part, which he didn't really like, but all in all, he was pretty happy, which is why he turned down Zetsu's request, or offer, or whatever. Right as Shisui is about to leave and go back to the village after having trained in the forest, Zetsu whispers that he'll regret his decision. Shisui leaves anyways and tells Naruto about what just happened. However, they decide not to inform Minato or anybody else as they know nothing about Madara. Shisui just saw a white Zetsu, who isn't a problem at all. He didn't give off any powerful chakra, he didn't seem menacing, just a messenger. So there wasn't really a problem for now, at least that's what they thought. They continued their day-to-day lives, and Naruto more and more thought that perhaps he should become an Anbu. He liked being fast, but he doesn't want to be seen every time with his yellow hair. He had tried to hide it as much as possible, but unless he covers it completely, that'd be pretty hard with it being bright yellow. But as an Anbu, he could do missions in the shadow. It'd be perfect. He has the speed and strength to match it, so Naruto told Shisui about his idea, and Shisui actually agreed and wanted to do something similar. So they both went to Minato and asked if they could join the Anbu. He thought about it, and they were a little bit young still. I mean, they weren't even 9 years old, so... But he allowed it. He allowed them to join the Anbu. Though they wouldn't be very busy, because they were still being, well, instructors to their two students as a 4-man team. However, in about 2 weeks, the Chunin exams would begin, and at this point, Naruto and Shisui could look for, well, I guess you could call it new jobs, because their students would graduate to become Chunin soon, and probably Jonin right after since they are pretty strong. So after working for 2 weeks as a part-time Anbu and a part-time instructor, Naruto and Shisui were now able to welcome their two students into the Chunin exams. Just like Naruto and Shisui, Kasumi and Itachi were going to be a 2-man team, and they absolutely rocked the Chunin exams. The first test was easy, as their confidence could not be swayed, and similar to Naruto and Shisui, they were actually able to answer some questions on their own without having to cheat. Though Itachi, being as sneaky as he is, was actually able to cheat and get all of them correct. Then in the second round, with their speed, they're easily able to counter a team even when they're outmatched in numbers. As their opponents have 3 members while they only have 2, they still outmatch them easily in strength and speed, take their scroll, and win as the first team finishing. Then in the finals, which are held 1 month later, they dominate, Itachi becoming first place and of course a Chunin, and Kasumi having a very close fight in the finals with Itachi, getting second place but also still the rank of Chunin. Both are seen as the next prodigies of Konoha, and whilst of course Naruto and Shisui haven't been forgotten at all actually, there's kind of a new spotlight on Kasumi and Itachi. And whilst they're not the next generation of shinobi, they are the next ones to rise up and become something great. But now, as their two students are officially Chunin, Naruto and Shisui can retire as instructors and become Anbu as they wanted. They enhance their skills of more sneaky stuff that an Anbu could use. Detection, chakra control, speed, silence, staying hidden, and much more. They do missions from Minato himself. However, there is still the other branch, Danzo's Anbu. Some Anbu are even intertwined in the two groups and follow orders made by Minato as well as Danzo. so the barrier is kind of a gray zone. But there is definitely two opposing sides, and the leaders, being Minato and Danzo, both know that. Now, a little bit later, after Shisui and Naruto joined the Anbu, Kakashi joined the Anbu too. He was very successful in what he did, and by the way, the reason he joined the Anbu this time was not because of the sadness and sorrow that he felt from, Rin and Obito's death, as that was the original reason he joined in canon. In the story, well, she mostly was bored. She wanted something new, a new thrill. The war had been over, and he didn't want to become an instructor later on. He wanted something different. And he respected the Anbu very much for what they did for the village, and found them pretty cool, as they did very important missions. Some even more important than the ones the Jonin were doing. So Kakashi wanted to join the Anbu, and of course Minato let him, as he knew Kakashi had more than enough of the skills he needed to. So Kakashi was very successful in the Anbu, though not quite as successful as Naruto and Shisui were. Only 3 months after they joined the Anbu, Naruto and Shisui single-handedly turned around the unofficial war between the Anbu, giving Minato's side, the Black Ops, much more power. And Naruto and Shisui were single-handedly basically ruling the Anbu, being a leader and inspiration to all of them. Outside of missions though, Naruto and Shisui never talked to any Anbu, as they thought that it would just get in the way of their missions and doesn't really fit for an Anbu. During all and every mission, they were serious, not to be messed around with. No jokes or giggles. Stone-hearted. And on the run. More and more of the Anbu in the route considered becoming one of the Black Ops, the ones under Minato's rule, as they seemed just better. And if it ever came to an all-out war, they would definitely win, as the chances were right now. Danzo tried to assert dominance as much as possible, but he couldn't sway the hearts of his fellow Anbu. So some of them straight up left the route and joined Minato. Some of them just didn't want to take orders from Danzo anymore. And some of them just didn't show up to when missions were supposed to be made or done. This was a huge problem, and the route was falling apart internally. However, it wasn't completely broken yet, as it still had over half of the members initially. It had about 65%, which, don't get me wrong, still a lot of them left, but there were still quite a few left in the route. So it wasn't that the war between the two factions was over, but the powers had definitely shifted. Minato's side of the Anbu had 3 very young but incredibly powerful Anbu. One, the Hokage's kid, a legend, even amongst Jonin. One, a prodigy of the Uchiha clan, already having the internal Mangekyo Sharingan at not even 9 years old. And then Kakashi Hatake, the last remaining Hatake. Having become a Jonin at a very young age, he was a legend too. A little older than the 2 previous ones, being Naruto and Shisui, but still pretty young for what he was doing. All of the Anbus took orders from those 3, especially Naruto and Shisui. Each of the 3, being Naruto, Shisui, and Kakashi, each had kind of a subdivided faction inside the Black Ops. Now, they weren't opposing factions and didn't do anything to harm each other. They were just kind of divided as following a certain person more than the other 2. So, for example, Naruto's faction would be more attentive to Naruto, and he would more often be their team leader. However, sometimes, especially during harder missions, Naruto, Shisui, and Kakashi even work together in a 3-man team, and sometimes with other people involved too. But when those 3 were all in one team, you know it was a serious mission, as some of the, well, quote-unquote, easy missions which were still B-rank missions, Naruto or Shisui did on their own, and very fast at that. But now, it was serious. Well, it came to something serious. It was a serious mission, ordered by Minato. Minato personally. It wasn't a regular shinobi mission. It was actually about Danzo and the route. Minato had suspicion, as well as some vague intel, that Danzo was plotting something big, that could hurt potentially a lot of people, which is why it had to be shut down immediately before it ever came to that. So with that, Naruto, Kakashi, and Shisui each took 5 of their strongest Anbu, and were to infiltrate the route and, well, eliminate it. And they didn't have to eliminate everybody there, mostly just Danzo, and even better if they could, instead of killing him, taking him alive, though that could be very hard, as Danzo is a very tricky person. So killing him would be very okay, and would still achieve their goal. The main thing being, just don't kill all the Anbu, as most of them at least were probably not evil, just following the wrong person. So now it came to a war, and the war was brought by Minato. It wasn't really a war, it was mostly just one battle, though what had been leading up to it was a Cold War. But now, this was it. This was the real deal. Naruto, Shisui, and Kakashi were all going at the same time, struck at the perfect time to infiltrate the route, as they were just now having a meeting between all the remaining members of the route, and Danzo himself was there too. Naruto, Kakashi, and Shisui, as well as all their Anbu, were jumping down in the cave-like headquarters of the route, and without having to say a word, a fight broke out. Danzo immediately tried to put some space between him and the fight, though Naruto, Shisui, and Kakashi, having let their Anbu fight the other Anbu, the 3 leaders immediately all went for Danzo, as defeating him was the key to shed the least blood and still be successful in their mission. So now there was 2 fights, one between all the leaders, 4 leaders. It was basically a 3v1, and then a pretty evenly matched out fight between the Anbu, though the root Anbu were actually slightly winning, as they had a few more members, though on average the members were a little bit weaker than in the other faction, so basically Minato's faction, as they had only taken their strongest fighters to this mission. So the root has more members in this fight currently, but they're weaker on average. However, the leaders fighting, Danzo's definitely losing at this point. His speed is easily outmatched, and his genjutsu is completely outmatched. As you gotta remember, Danzo is really not that strong at this point. He doesn't have Shisui's eye, though he did try to grab it during the fight right now, but was unsuccessful as Naruto blocked for Shisui before it even came to that. And Danzo also doesn't have all the Uchiha eyes, so he just has his normal eyes and his normal jutsu, which isn't weak. I mean, he does still have wood release, as he implanted Hashirama cells in himself. That still stays the same. He definitely isn't weak. He has pretty good control over chakra and chakra natures too, but no match against 3 very strong former Jonin and now the leaders of the Anbu. Especially Naruto and Shisui, who are working in a team and absolutely annihilating Danzo, blocking his attacks and hitting them back 5 times as powerful. And after only 2 minutes of fighting, Danzo is on the ground, crying for mercy, though Kakashi doesn't give it to him. Kakashi eliminates Danzo. Now the reason for this is, while she isn't too depressed and cold because of Obito and Rin's death, she is he still had to grow up pretty fast and become a shinobi at a very young age, as his father did still commit suicide. And Danzo was kind of a symbol for Kakashi, a symbol to do similar things that his father did, and then get discriminated for prioritizing lives over missions. So Danzo was basically the embodiment of what Kakashi hated most, which is why Kakashi took it upon himself to finish the job. And immediately when Danzo bit the dust, Naruto jumped up, temporarily somewhat hovering above the ground, using his wind chakra ability to kind of float, and then screamed for everyone to stop fighting as their leader was down. And so, the ones under Naruto's command, being an example for their opponents and peers, laid down their weapons. The Root's Anbu was cautious, though one after the other were now becoming former Root Anbu, laying their weapons down, not having any will to fight any longer. Therefore, Danzo was eliminated and the Root was eliminated, and the people trapped in it were finally saved, as many of the Anbu were forced to become Anbu and forced to work for the Root, such as we saw Yamato. And even when they're not forced, it's very brutal to work in the Anbu. Not just that, but in the Root, it's gruesome at times. And with that, I'm going to leave off the video. Hope you enjoyed. Make sure to like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace!